Why the twin flame cult is so successful. Why the twin flame community is so susceptible to this scam, and why it is the ultimate recipe to create the perfect cult with the most loyal and willing victims. Hello and welcome. My name is Mike, aka Mahadeva, on my other channel, the Thunder Wizard channel. I'll probably upload this to both of my channels because it has incredible relevance to the world that we live in today. I won't spend a lot of time talking about it. I talk about it off and on other videos, but we live in a world that has become increasingly, it's chronically narcissistically programmed. So we have people who are programmed from birth to be narcissistically devalued. So we need to know, you have to understand this concept of narcissistic devaluation to really understand how this cult came about and how it became so incredibly, I'll get into some of the details of, how incredibly powerful and destructive this cult still is. By the way, I have not named anybody by name, and I have not named any organization by name, and I will not do that. This information comes from documentaries that have shown up on places like Netflix and others. I'm sure if you go looking for it, you can find the specific organization I'm referring to, but in this video, I am not mentioning anybody by name, nor do I have any intention of implicating any individuals. All right, let's keep going. So what is narcissistic devaluation? So narcissism, people think that narcissists are people who are completely full of themselves and have huge egos and think the world of themselves and love themselves and think themselves to be the most amazing godlike creatures, superior to all other beings. Of course, that is the way that they present themselves. They act as though that's how they experience themselves. But the truth is, the core of people who have real narcissism, and again, many people throw out the word narcissism very cavalierly. Everybody has narcissism. Everybody, no matter how healthy. In fact, you couldn't be a healthy human if you didn't have narcissism, the ability to be self-absorbed and focused on yourself. It's not possible. You wouldn't function. So narcissism, there's nothing inherently wrong with narcissism itself. But people who suffer from narcissistic personality disorder, people who are psychopaths, sociopaths, who are people who run cults, these people do not have huge egos. They do not believe themselves to be God. The truth is that at the core of their identity is absolute, complete, total insecurity. They are constantly on the verge of feeling like they are going to die. They need what is called narcissistic supply, which comes from other people, which can be anything, but very often in the case of grandiose narcissists, there's all kinds of narcissists, by the way. Most people, when they talk about a narcissist, they're talking about a grandiose narcissist, a malignant, grandiose, psychopathic narcissist. But there's all different kinds. But the malignant, psychopathic, grandiose narcissist, they get their supply from other people worshiping them, as well as they get their supply from being able to have control over other people. All right, so we need to get our definition straight here. So narcissistic devaluation is what a narcissist does in order to keep you in his or her sphere of influence. And I'm saying that this has to do with the entire world that we live in. We live in a world that is run by psychopathic narcissists. And in order to function in this world, especially in order to be successful, by successful I mean being, a billionaire. I'm not saying that if you're successful and you have money and you have a nice house and a family, I'm not saying that you're operating in a chronically devalued way. But in order to want to be a big movie star, wanting to be a big wig on Wall Street, wanting to be extremely powerful, you have to be narcissistically devalued, and you have to be supplying your energy, your soul, in order to gain that success. Because the society that we live in is designed for one thing. It's an upside down Ponzi scheme. Or actually, it's not upside down, sorry. It is a Ponzi scheme. Everything. Even, if you talk to somebody that's self-aware, who's has any understanding of the science of economics, if you talk to economists, you will know that the definition of an economy starts with the belief that resources are limited and not everybody has access to them. That's the fundamental assumption. That is a programming technique used by narcissists. We'll see that in this cult. So, narcissistic devaluation is what is happening in our society, and this will play in big with this. So let's go ahead and get started with this. So, sorry, that's what we're going to look at later. So why was the twin flame cult so successful? So it started from the assumption of personal devaluation, of narcissistic devaluation. The whole idea of twin flames, the definition of twin flames, starts from a chronically narcissistically devalued position. So if you believe in twin flames, don't get mad at me. Just sit with yourself if you feel defensive, like you want to defend the belief in twin flames. I'm not trying to take away your feelings. I know that your feelings are real and that they are so powerful that they have developed to a point where you need somebody to mirror back to you what you're feeling with this belief of twin flames. Twin flames, by the way, is a new concept. You can tell by, the bags under my eyes and the gray hair. I've been on this planet for a while. And I can tell you that, 20 years ago or before, there was no such thing as twin flames. It wasn't even a concept anybody ever thought about. People talked about soulmates, but that started from a different assumption. So the assumption of the twin flame already starts from a narcissistically devalued place. Because if you believe in twin flames, if you are a twin flame, then you believe that you came into this incarnation incomplete, that you are only half of a soul, which means you're not a complete person. And so you've already set up a definition where it's impossible for you to feel happy and comfortable in and of yourself. And if you listen to that definition, I'll say it again. If you believe you are a twin flame, you start from the assumption that you are incomplete and incapable of becoming self-fulfilled. That sounds a lot like chronic codependence. Somebody could very easily make that a definition for codependence. I have an evolving definition of codependence, and codependence, now I'm changing that word to narcissistically devalued. Somebody who's operating from narcissistic devaluation programming. When you use the word codependence, people feel they're being labeled. They feel as though they have some kind of an illness. They feel, again, what it does is it appeals to their codependent experience of feeling devalued. So instead of, I'm going to work towards stop calling people codependents and calling them narcissistically devalued, because that is the truth. You've been victimized. You've been programmed to feel incomplete and imperfect. And the truth is that there is nothing wrong with you. You, in fact, the opposite of twin flame is the assumption that you are completely, totally valuable simply because you exist. that there is literally nothing you can do to make yourself more lovable than you already are. In fact, you are supremely lovable simply because you exist and are aware and have feelings and experiences. That makes you absolutely the most lovable, the most valuable being in existence by definition. So you can't believe that and at the same time believe that you are a twin flame. Because to believe you are a twin flame means that you believe that you are incomplete and that you cannot achieve happiness until you find the other half of your soul. Now, if that's all that it was, then we would have a very, a magnified soulmate relationship, because soulmates operate from a similar assumption that there's a person out there, there's a soul out there that connects with you, that you've known from previous lifetimes or something like that, or you have a purpose with them, and when you're with them, you feel at home, you feel safe, you feel loved and seen. But that the assumption is that you're a complete soul within yourself, and this person is also a complete soul, and there's some kind of destiny that you share. And so a soulmate relationship are two complete souls coming together, and each person is living out their personal destiny. And it so happens that their personal destiny is entwined with the other person's destiny. But the other person isn't your destiny. The other person isn't the other half of you. Because to believe that means, and again, I'm not attacking you, I'm just spelling out the reality here. If you believe you are a twin flame, it means that you believe in a universe that brings you into manifestation deformed. Because what would happen to somebody physically if they were only born with half a body? We would call that deformed. So we could go on that. Why are people born, deformed? That's a horrible thing, but we know that that's true. But if we have the assumption that that person is just a soul living in a body and this is not their, this is a temporary thing, at least we can find some, and call karma and all that. Whether you choose to believe it, at least we can accept that that's at least an understandable definition that still lends itself to the idea of being a just and loving universe. Because you're not going to be like that forever. You learn whatever lesson in this body, you move on, and then you go back to being a soul and you incarnate in another lifetime if you choose. But if you believe that you live in a universe where at the soul level, like, your body isn't you, but your soul is you. It is the ultimate definition of you. If you believe in a universe where you are allowed or you are forced to incarnate deformed on a soul level, then you believe in a narcissistically devaluing universe. So if you want to believe that, go ahead, but you're screwed. I mean, if you start from that base assumption that you are not complete, which means your soul is deformed, which means you are not lovable in and of yourself, which means you don't have complete value. You are incomplete and you will not be complete until you reconnect with your other half, your other soul. If you start from that assumption, you're screwed. Because the universe obviously is a sick place, and whatever, source you want to believe for that is a sick, narcissistically devaluing source. Because at the core of who you are, you're saying that source, God or whatever, wants you to come into this manifestation, which is already difficult, deformed. It means this is, again, let me give you my definition of codependence. Codependence is getting your value, getting your lovability based on what you do or something external to you as opposed to what you are. So I'm saying You have value simply because you exist and you experience yourself. And there's nothing more you can do. You are ultimately lovable. What that means is if people don't love you unconditionally, simply because you exist, it means that they are narcissistically devalued. Now, if you're an abusive person, of course, people will have to separate from you. But if you learn to operate from self-love, people will love you. You will be lovable. Unless, of course, they are narcissistically devalued, and then you will be a challenge for them. Anyway, we're getting in the weeds here. So, twin flame cult was successful because of people who get involved with it start from the assumption of personal devaluation. They believe their experience, their emotional experiences, that they are incomplete, that they are not complete humans, that they are not lovable in and of themselves, that they don't deserve unconditional love, that they won't be complete and valuable as a human until they find the other half of their soul. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, it gets worse, because that sets you up for, oh my God, I found my other half. That's the whole idea of a soulmate. The whole idea of a soulmate is that you're feeling not completely fulfilled. You believe that there is a soul out there that is meant for you, that complements you. And when you find that soul, then the two souls come together and they spend their lives together. That's the definition of a soulmate. Soulmates, when they find each other, they spend the rest of their lives together. Well, the twin flame already starts from a narcissistically devalued place, because you're a deformed half of a soul that's been forced to come into this world. Now, it would be, just a more magnified idea of a soulmate if you found your other half, and logic dictates that if your other half is out there, your other half is having the exact same experience as you, sees you and goes, oh my God, I'm now back, we're one soul, we're okay. But that's not what happens. According to twin flame lore, your other half, for some reason that nobody can really explain, your other half won't want you. Not only will your other half not want you, but your other half will be repelled by you. And when the two of you are together, you will be the worst possible thing for each other. You will bring out the worst in each other. So, in other words, it's a way of justifying a destructive, narcissistically devalued relationship, a dysfunctional, codependent, narcissistic relationship. And people who believe in twin flames, this is part of their belief system. So why would somebody choose to believe something so completely irrational? And why would somebody choose to believe something that pretty much guarantees they're going to be miserable? They're never going to be able to connect with their other half, because their other half is going to run away from them or be abusive to them, or both. Get married, have kids with other people. Why would somebody want to choose to believe that? Well, they wouldn't. So then the question is, why do they? They do because that is their experience. And what is their experience? They're starting from the assumption of narcissistic devaluation, which says they are not lovable in and of themselves. So when you find a relationship where somebody is abusive to you, won't give you true intimacy, and or will reject you, then you get to live out that prophecy of not being lovable, not being unconditionally valuable, not being lovable simply because you exist. So what we're talking about here is the belief in twin flames is nothing more than a human being playing out their internal narcissistic devaluation of themselves. Another word for codependence. So now, what ends up happening? So why twin flame cult was so successful started from the assumption of personal devaluation, spiritualized the victim's narcissism. So what ends up happening in twin flame relationships? Again, I'm just going by the lore, going by the mythology online. And the cult didn't create this. I mean, this was the perfect cult, I have to say. You know, I would, you know, sometimes I wish, I wish I could live with myself if I could create a cult. I couldn't, I wouldn't be able to do it. I couldn't tolerate the thought. But if you wanted to start a cult, this is the perfect one. And you know, I won't get into it, but you know, this is how you know the guy who started this cult is a narcissist. Because narcissists always overreach and they always destroy. There is no cult member out there that doesn't destroy themselves. If you go all the way back to Jim Jones in the 1970s, you know, we'll talk about that because it's hugely different. He ended up killing himself and everybody else because a narcissist is self-destructive. And so they always destroy it. But if they were smart, you know, if you wanted to have the perfect cult that you could keep going for the rest of your life, which a lot of religions do, then, you know, if he stopped part way and didn't keep going and doing all the really crazy stuff he did, or is apparently still doing, he'd have the perfect cult. Because the twin flame scenario is already set up for a lifetime of cult following, because the twin flame believer is already set up to believe that they do not deserve love, that they are deformed, which again makes them unlovable, and they will never achieve satisfaction. That's their unconscious belief. Now you can tell them, you can create a cult where you say, you can have perfect union with your twin flame and I'll help you. But even if they don't, which is their internal unconscious belief that they'll never, because they believe that. Twin flame will repel against you, brings out the worst in you, it'll never work, blah, blah, blah. So if that happens, you can go, well, of course, it's your twin flame. Keep going, keep giving us money, keep worshiping me. You could keep people forever, for the rest of their lives, if they weren't so narcissistic and if they didn't overreach. But because he overreached, you know, his cult is falling apart on him. Again, it's the perfect cult because the believers in twin flames are the perfect narcissistic devaluation victim. You couldn't find a better one. They're built in to continue to devalue themselves. Anyway, so he spiritualized their narcissism. What is the narcissism? The narcissism is, again, we're going by twin flame lore, which is not soulmate lore. Twin flame lore, mythology, says that your twin flame is going to be unconsciously resistant to you because it's too real, man. It'll bring out you'll have to face yourself and become spiritually awakened, and your ego will get in the way and all of that. So, you know, to believe when your twin flame has moved on and they're married to somebody else and they have kids, and to believe that, you know, I mean, it blows my mind when I've you know, researched this stuff and I hear people talking about my twin flame has moved on and is married now, you know, and is married to a karmic, you know, meaning it's not a twin flame and they're lying to themselves. And, you know, the assumption is the narcissistic assumption is that that person should be with you. That person should leave their wife and their kids and come and be with you. And if they were only honest with themselves. And then what's crazy is they'll create this relationship in the astral plane. And so then they know that in the physical plane, their twin flame is, you know, with somebody else, married and has kids with somebody else. So they'll go off and have these fantasy relationships off in the astral realm and tell themselves, you know, and if I keep doing that, he'll come around. I mean, that would be the perfect setup if you created a cult. I'm just thinking about it now. I mean, if I were to create a cult, I'm not going to do it because you know, the universe wouldn't tolerate it. But if I did, that's how I would set it up. I would set it up so that I was creating spiritual practices to help you fulfill and keep giving you the hope that if you are perfect in your spiritual, astral exercises, that they'll come around. And if they don't, it's not because of you, it's because of them. But if you do it right, they'll come to you. I mean, you could keep people in that for the rest of their lives. They'd give you all of their money. Anyway, this guy's an idiot for not doing that if what he wants is to create a cult. And according to the Netflix documentary, apparently before he did this, he was looking for a way to be rich, to just be filthy rich. So obviously, clearly the guy's a narcissist. He's got narcissistic personality disorder. And as I said, people who have that mental illness, they always end up destroying themselves. They always overreach, the NXIVM cult. Again, that guy had the perfect, another perfect cult. He could have kept that going for the rest of his life, but he overreached, as they always do. Because inside of the person with NPD, there is a black hole of emptiness that can never be filled. No amount of power, no amount of money will ever make them feel better. The more they get, the more that they want. And so they end up completely destroying themselves. All right. So he spiritualized the victim's narcissism. The idea that somebody moving on and having kids should leave their wife and their kids to be with you is incredibly narcissistic. I mean, because you have no empathy for anybody else. You have you don't even have empathy, enough empathy to go, it's possible that I have feelings and that person doesn't. There's so much narcissism going on that because you feel this way, then the other person must also. They're just not owning up to it. And what is this? It's childishness. I can remember being in junior high school and falling in love with girls in junior high school. And because I was having such an intense experience, it felt like the truth. It felt spiritual. It felt like destiny. And of course, if I was feeling that this person was, my soulmate, then of course they're feeling it. If I'm feeling it, you're feeling it. That's narcissism. Self-referential narcissism, that everybody else is just an extension of you. Whatever you feel, So this is all that's happening here. People who believe in twin flames and they've found somebody that they've determined within themselves, they've decided that the person is their twin flame. Then, the idea that that person can't have their own feelings and not be attracted to them. And more than that, they get involved with somebody else, get married and have kids, that's illegitimate. And then to want to take them away from that, take them away from their spouse, take them away from their children, is incredibly narcissistic. So this person, by wanting to make a cult out of the twin flame belief system, spiritualized their victim's narcissism. They spiritualized their victim's codependence. So, the difference between the twin flame believer and the cult leader is that the twin flame believer, what makes people truly believe in twin flames, is their codependence. And what is codependence? That's just another word for narcissistic devaluation. Narcissistic devaluation, again, is when you have been programmed to believe that you are not lovable simply because you exist. It means you're imperfect. Again, twin flames believe they're deformed on a spiritual level, that they're only half of a soul, which is being spiritually deformed. It's ugly, unlovable, frightening. Nobody wants that. Would you want that? Unless the person was your other half, no. But if you're a fully complete person and you're going through the world and you're a complete soul and somebody comes along and says they're only half a soul, do you want to meet all my needs? You're going to be like, no, thank you. That doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun. If you're only half a soul, how are you going to be able to give to me? It's not going to, I don't want anything to do with that. So you've set yourself up so that the only person that can love you is your other half, because nobody else is going to understand you. Nobody else is going to be able to meet your needs. This is why people who believe in twin flames talk about the intensity. The twin flame relationship is more intense. Well, it's more intense because of your intense need, your unfulfillable need, which is nothing more than narcissistic devaluation or codependence. The guaranteed, so the twin flame cult guaranteed the victim's fulfillment of impossible expectations. We already talked about this, but the definition of the definition of twin flame is that your partner will never truly be able to love you and accept you, which means you've set yourself up to constantly justify why you can't ever be with them. In fact, you're setting yourself up so that that will be the case, because you're already, if you believe in twin flames, you believe that your twin flame can't. They don't want to be with you. They're repelled by you. It's too real, man, and their ego won't let them, and all that other stuff. Which is, again, not what soulmates. Soulmates is the opposite. Soulmate is, I'm complete in myself, but there's a person I have a destiny with, and when we meet, we are going to want to be together for the rest of our lives. So again, why would somebody believe in something different? Because they've got an unconscious narcissistic programming that tells them you're never going to be loved, you're never good enough, just accept it. That's what's behind that. My twin flame is running from me. The divine masculine is running, or the divine feminine is running away. All right. So they guarantee the fulfillment of impossible expectations. So the one thing this cult does that the twin flame belief system doesn't is, and this again creates the perfect cult master. Perfect cult master comes along and says, so here's the twin flame scenario. You're deformed. You're never going to be loved. In fact, when you do find your twin flame, you won't be able to stay with them because they won't want to be with you because of their ego. And that's just the way it is. But then they go, but I know how to fix that. So what does that do? It creates an obsession on the part of the victim. It creates an obsession that puts them in that hamster wheel of addiction, because that's what addiction is. You get a little bit of taste of it and it's never enough. So if somebody says to you, which this guy apparently said according to Netflix, I'm not saying that because I haven't interacted with the guy, but according to the videos on Netflix, he says that I know how to have this union, this spiritual union. If you follow all of our courses and you do everything we tell you to do, we guarantee you union, which is not part of the twin flame belief. So that's, again, perfect setup for a cult and a perfect setup for the addict, because people in cults are addicts. They're devalued, don't get me wrong. They are victims of abuse, but we're going to find out later that unlike cults in the past, this cult, the only way you could be in this cult is if you sought it out, which to me I find really interesting. And again, it shows this is a more perfect cult. We're going back to Jim Jones. Jim Jones, you've heard the phrase drinking the Kool-Aid, in case you don't know where that came from. Jim Jones had taken all of his people to South America, in Guyana. It was a French Guyana, and they had this compound where they lived, and he had armed guards surrounding the place, and he had armed guards pointing guns at the people when he decided that they were going to drink Kool-Aid laced with poison and they were going to kill themselves. And if you didn't pick that up, there was somebody with a gun that was going to blow your brains out. So you can look at that and go, yeah, they're victims. They're part of a cult. They couldn't get out. They had a gun to them. They didn't have any money. They couldn't eat, right? Without the cult, you literally couldn't survive because you were being held hostage. This cult was 100% online. I think they only met in person, a handful of times. So that to me is amazing, because again, I grew up in the 70s where cults were, once you get into the cult, you are there and you're held there by force. Same thing with, what is the Tom Cruise cult, right? Same thing. People are held there eventually against their will, and you have to give up everything. But this wasn't the case. These were people who had homes. Oftentimes they, could have just simply not gone online. Nobody was forcing them to do anything. So they chose to be there. Again, that's why it's the perfect cult, because people who believe in twin flames are extremely motivated to keep this belief system going. I've never seen anything like it, if I'm being honest. So the guaranteed fulfillments of impossible expectations, they conflated wealth with romantic fulfillment. That was another brilliant thing. Now, of course, if he's online and he's using the cult to fulfill his financial ambitions, then of course he has to set it up like Nexium did, where you become, you pay for courses and then you become a paid coach. And so your entire life, then in order to survive, you have to have your coaching system work for you. I mean, I know that. I work for myself, and if I don't go online and if I don't teach, if I don't offer courses, I can't eat. YouTube, I'm lucky if I get $100 a month from YouTube advertisements. People ask me, how much money do you make from YouTube? I mean, nothing. The people who make money from YouTube, I'm not one of those people. I have to create my own courses and do all that. So I understand if he's got this online cult. I can understand his mindset of how he created this multi-level marketing thing, and he conflated wealth with spiritual and romantic fulfillment. So their need is they believe, it's not really the case, but they believe that they're in that cult because it's going to guarantee them love, spiritual and romantic fulfillment. So he conflated money with that, put them in a position where they had to follow all the courses and then become a coach, and then their only money then comes from the fact that they're in this cult. So being in the cult and being able to pay your bills becomes the same thing, as well as fulfilling your desire to be loved. So he's got everything, all of the basic human needs. It's brilliant because, again, there's nobody putting a gun to your head. You're doing it from home. You're choosing to get online. And when you hear from the family of the victims, they say that, they'd come home from wherever, work or school or whatever, and then they'd go into the basement and spend all the time online, with this cult. So again, I find that brilliant to be able to pull that off. But again, he overreached. All right, let's keep going. So conflated wealth with romantic fulfillment, capitalized on isolation of internet age. I already just talked about that. Made victims financially dependent on proselytization of cult. I talked about that. Replaced victims' narcissistic intentions with Stockholm syndrome. So in order for a cult to be successful, it eventually has to end up like that. So this is where it becomes just narcissistically abusive. So this is the narcissist relationship. To get involved with a narcissist, what ends up happening is the narcissist must see in you narcissistic devaluation wounds. So they see in you a wound where you feel you are unlovable and that you don't have value because you exist, that your value and your lovability is based on something you do or something external about you, like your looks or your wealth. And that creates a deep need to feel the same kind of unconditional love that children get from their mother. So the thing about narcissists, the reason why they are so powerful is that they know what your childish wound is, and then they meet that. Healthy people don't do that, which is why if somebody is, a narcissistically devalued or a codependent person, they're going to be bored or turned off by healthy people. Healthy people, first off, they don't love bomb you. They want to get to know you. They don't know you well enough to tell you you're the most amazing person in the world if they've just met you 6 hours ago, because they don't know enough about you. They haven't experienced you enough. But if you have this need to be seen and loved and be worshipped, which is the feeling that babies get from their mother, because mothers do that. They absolutely, love and worship their child. This is the most beautiful child, the most unique child. This is, and you get this feeling from your mother that you are unique, that you are loved simply because you exist. If you don't get that, then guess what? You're being set up on some level for narcissistic devaluation. So the narcissists are, because they have the same issue. They don't have this. They don't feel valuable in and of themselves. So they have psychic abilities to know what your buttons are that will make you feel that. And once you feel that love, you will unconsciously bond to the narcissist as powerfully as an infant bonds to the mother. You think it's love. You conflate it with love. And if you're really devalued, you will conflate it with twin flames, because twin flames will say, this is more intense than normal relationships. Normal people don't feel this intensity. Well, they did when they were infants, but they're adults now and they feel it in an adult way. So you're right. If you're feeling it at that level of intensity, what it means is that you're operating from your unresolved infantile need for your mother. So the narcissist will, whether they're male or female, whether it's a heterosexual or homosexual or pansexual, whatever kind of sexual relationship you want, regardless of the sexual identity of the relationship, the narcissist will take on the role of your mother and make you feel completely seen and loved, like only a mother can. So that's what makes it so intense. Because what happens to infants when mommy's not around? They scream, cry. And as we've said many times before, the fastest way, it's been proven, the fastest way to kill an infant is to withhold love and attention, to neglect them. That will kill an infant faster than anything, faster than starvation or cold or heat. And I've talked to you about in the Middle Ages, the king who wanted to find out what the original language was. He had orphaned infants put on an island with a bunch of nuns and told the nuns at pain of death that they cannot interact with the child no matter what, except to feed and to clothe and to wipe their butts. Outside of that, they were not allowed to speak, they were not allowed to interact, touch the child, interact, and every single one of those infants died. So imagine those poor nuns sitting there as a room full of infants are scream crying because they're not being communicated with, they're not being loved. Imagine how difficult that must have just been horrific for them. So the narcissist knows that, taps into that, and that's what the love bombing is about. And once the bond is created, then they flip the script and then they exacerbate your feeling of not being good enough. That's the abuse part. So the intermittent reinforcement that happens is you are love bombed, which bonds you to them. In the beginning, it's always that. You're bonded to them, and then after the bond is there, then they neglect you, they abuse you, and by abuse they tell you you're not good enough. You have to do this to get my love. You can get my love if you just do this, and then it'll be perfect enough. Again, this is religion. Religion says if you're perfect, God will love you. And if you're a cult leader, you say, if you're perfect, I will love you, and then you'll have everything. Or if the desire is to be loved and you're promising them that they will find love and fulfillment, but you put the gaslit narcissistic abuse on them by saying, well, if you don't have it because you haven't done the work, you haven't looked at yourself. And so again, this mirror exercise is perfect if you're familiar with it. So this exercise they use is called the mirror exercise, which is nothing short of teaching you how to gaslight yourself out of your experience. So the way it works is that whatever's bothering you, you replace the pronouns so that it comes back to you. So in other words, you say, I'm angry at my girlfriend because she's not sexually attracted to me and doesn't want to fulfill my needs. You change that into, I'm angry at my girlfriend because I'm not attracted to myself and I don't want to fulfill my sexual needs. So it becomes your fault. So if you learn how to love yourself correctly, then she'll come around and want to give you what you want. So again, it's very narcissistic. You'll get what you want as long as you gaslight yourself and tell yourself you're not good enough, right? So it doesn't matter what it is. They can just turn that on you. If you're mad at the cult leader because they're abusing you and taking all of your money, and you say, well, I'm mad at myself because I'm abusing myself and taking all my money. Oh, so I'm sabotaging myself financially. It's not because I'm giving all my money to the cult leader. It's because if I really loved myself, I would have so much money I could give it to him and have money to spare. It's the perfect narcissistic way to keep somebody just self-referentially abusing themselves, which makes them want to stay. Gives them that thing, if I'm only perfect, and this person, this religion, this relationship is my path to being perfect. If I just perfect myself, then I'll have everything I want. And if unconsciously you don't believe you deserve everything you want, then what are you going to do? You're going to keep recreating a scenario, or you're going to seek out a scenario where you're never fulfilled, which is what cults do. Cults basically say, we're here to help you fulfill your unconscious desire to never get what you want. But we'll tell you you can get it, and then we'll keep gaslighting you so that you never get it, and that you're addicted to feeling unworthy, so you'll stay with us, which is really what it is. It's addiction. Made victims financially dependent on proselytization of cult. Replaced victims' narcissistic intentions with Stockholm Syndrome. Okay, so I pretty much talked about that. So how can we heal from narcissistic devaluation? One, we start from the assumption of divine infinity of your soul. That is the opposite of the assumption that people have who believe in twin flames. So bear in mind, what's perfect about this cult is there was already a belief that had been created by people's own self-devaluation, and it was really powerful. It's still powerful. I mean, you can go online and you will, no shortage, absolutely no shortage of people who believe in twin flames. So remember, what did we say? Belief in twin flames is the assumption of personal devaluation. You can't believe that you are a twin flame, meaning you're only half of a soul, if you don't start from the assumption that you aren't complete and that you don't have the ability to be loved in and of yourself. It's the beginning of the belief. You already start from the belief. So just to believe in twin flames means that you don't believe you're valuable. So the opposite of that is to start from the assumption of divine infinity of your soul, which is that you are infinitely lovable and valuable simply because you exist. And if you're able to operate from that, you will be able to find love. You will not need another person. You can still want another person, but you won't need another person. If another person comes along, they can be a beautiful part of you can love them, be madly in love with them. You can be bonded to them. But you will still know that you are the source of your own love and your own fulfillment. That other person will love you. Like I've had a soulmate relationship. I've had twin flame relationships, which is why I know what it feels like. And I can tell you from hindsight that they're just very dysfunctional, narcissistically devalued or codependent relationships. That's how I know the difference. I've had a soulmate relationship. Sadly, she passed away. But I know what it's like to be with somebody who loves you just because of who you are and gets off on the idea of you doing things that make you happy. The narcissist doesn't do that. The narcissist gets value off of you doing what they want. But somebody who really loves you gets off on the idea of you doing what you want. Doesn't mean they don't have needs, but they will be unhappy if you're not seeking out your own happiness. So this is a true, loving relationship. You have love for yourself, which means that you seek out your own personal and spiritual fulfillment. And that is a turn on to your partner. You know you're in a bad relationship when going after what you want makes the other person feel unloved and unwanted, and they want you to spend more time on them. That's a bad sign. You're spending all this time on yourself and not enough with me. Now, I'm not talking about people who are being neglected. That's different. You know, I know what it's like. I was married to a woman. We were not, it wasn't a healthy relationship. Every time that I would start to become successful in my own business, she would shut it down. She would say, "You're not spending enough time with me." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I only do this 2-3 nights a week." "Well, you should be spending all your time with me." Well, I can't do that and you know, work a business. So, you know, so that was obvious. I mean, I had that experience where somebody who was actually threatened when you were fulfilling your own needs, fulfilling your own self, becoming your own person. Anyway. So you start from the assumption of divine infinity of your soul. You assume your inherent completeness and unconditional value. You take personal responsibility to fulfill your soul desire. So that is what this guy is doing in this cult. He's telling people that they're doing that he's got the answer. And if you just, you know, put the time and do the work, you'll get what you want. If you're not getting what you want, there's something wrong with you. You're not doing the work. But again, the assumption is he's got the answer, like he's God and you got, and he in fact then started saying he was God, saying that he was Jesus Christ or something like that. So, you know, again, people's codependence is now turned into this, you know, cult-like worship of the person and the belief that that person has the ability to fulfill your needs by giving you the tools to be able to meet this other need inside of you, which you call, you know, your twin flame relationship. So instead, you take personal responsibility to fulfill your soul desire. So what I teach on my Thunder Wizard channel and in my book, I have a book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. You can go get it on Amazon, Kindle, or Audible. You can also get my books at michaelwilliamdenny.com, D-E-N-N-E-Y. But if you can remember the title, you can just type in The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. I know it's a long title, but if you look for that, in that book, what I teach is what I've experienced for myself, which is that I finally came to the realization that you know, I was broke and miserable. I had just gotten out of a horrible marriage, the one I already talked about, and I came to the realization that I didn't want to live in an unjust universe. And the idea that I had to live in a universe where I had to, you know, and by that time I was 50 years old. You know, so, you know, it wasn't like I was a kid. I mean, I lived life. I've done everything that, you know, I did all the job things. I did the career thing. You know, I had the equivalent of a PhD, you know, college education. So I did all that stuff that society told me to do. If I did all that, I'd be successful. And I wasn't. I was broke and I was miserable. And here I was at 50 years of age, and you know, the only thing that I was really qualified to do in the job market was to go do some labor job, work at Walmart or work as a waiter, and I'm getting too old for that kind of crap. So I just decided that I wanted to live in a universe that was just. And in a just universe, you are given value when you follow the things that give you personal joy and satisfaction. And so I made that my decision. I said, I'm going to do what I want, and I'm going to figure out a way to turn that into a business, which is exactly what I did. And so then I teach that to people. So I use the term soul desire, which is different from what most people think when people say, what am I meant to do? They'll ask, what is God's will for me? What job am I supposed to have? And they're not asking, what do I want to do? As opposed to, you know, somebody like Kelly Slater, who's, you know, a very successful person, and he spent his entire life doing what he wanted to do, which was to surf. Now, normally, you know, surfing is something you do if you're a loser and you don't have a job and you live out of the back of a van and live at the beach, which is, by the way, not a bad way to live if you're, able to eat and live your dream. I've thought about living like that. I almost did live like that, and I would have done that. And everybody nowadays, especially with the internet, if you follow what you love, you can turn it into a business. So my assumption is, and I live on this assumption, I take action on this assumption, is that if I only am completely ruthless about what I want to do and what makes me happy, the universe will provide me with everything I need to fulfill that. And that to me is a just universe. A universe that forces you to live in a way where you're devaluing yourself and throwing yourself away in order to make some other company money, and they give you just enough money to survive. To me, that's very devaluing. Unless you enjoy your job, in which case, by all means, go work for that company if working for that company gives you happiness, by all means. But as I said, in the beginning, our world is created on, our society is created on self-devaluation. You have to pay taxes. What is that? I mean, that's the mafia. It's mafia saying, coming to the shop owner and saying, we're gonna, you give us, give us 10%, 20% of whatever you make. Why? You're not doing anything. Oh, yes, we are. We're not burning your store up. We're giving you protection money. I mean, you're giving us protection money. That's what paying taxes is. You don't pay taxes, what happens? You go to jail. Social security numbers. Social security number is nothing more than a slave tattoo. You might as well tattoo it on yourself because it's a slave number. I could go on and on and on, but we live in a society that devalues you, and people are programmed from childhood to be devalued, to believe that their value comes in doing things for other people. Look at Michael Jackson, the most successful, most popular celebrity in history. And how did he die? He died addicted to the most addictive drug available. In fact, he had to have a prescription and had to have a doctor infuse it in him. He hated himself so much. I could go on and on, getting your value from something outside of yourself. So anyway, I'm getting off in the weeds again. So you take personal responsibility to fulfill your soul desire. You take action on the assumption of unconditional value, of your unconditional value. You start from that. The universe will not delete somebody who has unconditional value. The moment you start to believe that your value comes from somewhere else, you cut yourself off from the universe and you end up deleting yourself as a result. So if you want to not be deleted by the universe, the way to do that is to become convinced of your own inherent unconditional value, and then take action to give yourself the things that give you the greatest joy. And if you take actions towards that, you are telling the universe, I love myself, you're required to take care of me. If you take action based on the narcissistic devaluation or the mafia influence on you, you're being intimidated, you have to have a job to be successful. You have to work for the widget company. You have to work for the corporation. You have to have value to society. Nobody's going to love you if you're not rich, if you're not famous, if you're not all those things. And listen to all the people who are coming out of college right now and realizing that their college degrees mean nothing. They're now in debt for the rest of their life to these universities, and nobody in the job market wants to hire them because they don't have any experience. And they say, I just got out of college, I have 2 degrees, and nobody will hire me, and the only thing I can do is work as a waitress somewhere. They're flipping out. Well, I could have told you that. There was a time when if you had a degree, it meant something. But even then, I would say, focus on what makes you happy. Every successful business person, every successful entrepreneur started doing something and introduced something that had never been seen before. The car. Somebody decided, Ford decided to mass produce cars. Bill Gates. Apple computers. Really successful things started from people who decided, and we could go on and on and on. So, the idea that you have an idea that nobody's doing, the conventional belief is don't do that, do what you're told, and then we'll love you and you'll be a functioning part of society. So instead, I'm saying do the opposite. Focus on what gives you joy and live off of that. And that's the same thing in relationships. You want to have a healthy relationship where somebody loves you for who you are, you have to first love yourself for who you are. And I can tell you that's not going to come by doing the mirror exercise. That's just an exercise in narcissistic devaluation. They're just training you to be narcissistically devalued. So the cult leader can just turn it on you and gaslight you. Because that's all you're doing is gaslighting yourself. Anyway, I'm in the weeds again. So take action on assumption of your unconditional value. Constantly assess your true desires and imagine your perfect world. So if you want to get spiritual now, the idea from quantum physics is that the physical universe is created literally off of how your mind perceives and chooses to perceive reality. Now, the latest thing is that the brain is not a computer, but the brain is actually a quantum computer, where within the brain what ends up happening is that quantum waves, again, reality is that there is no objective reality. There are only quantum possibilities that are, infinite numbers of quantum realities that are potential. And what happens is these quantum waves, which are potential infinite realities, they go through your brain. This is according to science. I'm not telling, this isn't religion, this is quantum physics talking now, and medicine talking now. That these quantum waves go through your brain, and your brain collapses one of these quantum waves into a fixed reality, because it's designed to give you the ability to only be able to perceive one physical reality at a time. So your brain collapses all of the infinite possibilities into one. That's what people mean when they say, what you focus on is what you create. Now, in my experience, there's a time lag. So when you're off in the astral in meditation and you're experiencing your perfect desire and focusing on that then goes to be created, and then your brain will collapse that into a reality that you will later walk into. And you'll think that you're walking into time or that God gave it to you. This is what prayer really was originally. Prayer was focusing on what you truly wanted in the astral, and then your brain collapsing it into a reality, and then you say, oh, God answered my prayer. That's why it doesn't work if you don't believe. That's why, according to the Christians, Jesus said, if you have the faith of mustard seed and you say to this mountain, move from this place to this place, it will obey you. Meaning that you will create a reality based on your perception of what you truly desire. That's the caveat. If you're not focused on what you truly desire, then it's very hit and miss. But sadly, because this is a testing ground, Earth, again, from my spiritual understanding, Earth is for us to test ourselves, to see how we can grow in our powers of manifestation. Our soul wants to learn how to manifest more, so it came into the Earth plane to have a very difficult, challenging environment, so that you had to get in touch with your true self so you could learn how to manifest your true reality. It's the whole reason for being here. So anyway, off in the weeds once again. So constantly assess your true desires and imagine your perfect world. So I do this all the time. So I've achieved my fantasy many, many times in my life. In the past 10 years, since I started living this, I have achieved it over and over and over again. And so what ends up happening is that if I'm not just having my bliss and just blissed out and enjoying my life, if life gets a little boring or a little challenging, I start to go, okay, what is it that I truly want? and I will go inside because it's challenging to know what you truly want, because you're constantly being narcissistically devalued to feel that you're a good person if you want what other people tell you you want. That's why people end up doing jobs they don't want to do. And people will feel like, I need to go get a job, I need to go to college. You know, if you want to get a job, go to college, go, by all means go do it. But people do it because their parents told them to do it, or they feel they're not a good person. You know, I remember hearing a guy say that he needed to go get a mortgage and buy a house. And I said, why? He said, well, you know, I'm 40 years old and you know, I need to be a functioning person. I said, you're not functioning now? I mean, I didn't end up having this conversation, but I would have said to him, so you're not functioning now? I mean, you look like you're functioning to me. You got a place to live? I know that he did. So you've got everything a person has who has a mortgage, except that a mortgage translates as death grip. You're giving away your money to the bank who really owns your house. You're renting your house from a bank, but you're completely responsible for it. If you stop paying rent, you will be responsible for the rest of that debt. If you lose your job, they will take your house away. They won't give you back 1 penny of the money that you've put into it. They won't pay you back for any of the repairs that you've done, the upkeep that you've done. You'll get nothing, but you will have potentially given away tens of thousands of dollars. So how is that making you more successful? Well, because you've been told if you have a mortgage, you're a successful person. You're investing in property, you're a successful person. You want to invest in property, go ahead, I got nothing against it. But bear in mind, if the government wants to come along and take it, they can. You know, the government has the ability to come and take away everything that you have. If they, you know, they can come up with a law to decide to do that. Look at what's happening in Lahaina, if you don't believe me. So again, it's very difficult because people are programmed to believe that what they want is what the narcissists are telling them what they want. We live in a narcissistic society. So the way to go against that is to go after what you want and take action based on what you want. And my belief and my experience is that the universe will always provide you with what you need, because you are God in the flesh. And if what God wants, God gets. The difference between that and a cult is that the cult leader is God and you're just some schmuck who's trying to please God. And I'm saying you are God. Again, quoting from the New Testament, the kingdom of God is within you. Jesus said, don't you know that you are God's? Now, I'm not a Christian, but I can pick and choose, cherry pick whatever verses I want, like most people do anyway. So you can use that. If that happens to be your spiritual tradition, you know, you can take that as, you know, here's the scripture, the gospel that said that you are God. So if you are God, it means that the universe has to obey you. But the caveat is, if you're not operating from your true soul desire, then the universe is going to say, that's not what you really want. And you told me I had to give you what you really want. And so then your experience will be, the universe is this empty, cruel place. And, you know, there are false beings of light trying to steal my joy and trying to force me to reincarnate. I'm saying there are false archons without a doubt, but they're humans. They're not out there. They're down here. So you want to overcome them? Become your divine self. And you can't do that if you're not living your deepest joy. It's okay if you're struggling with that. And that's, you know, part of what I do on my Thunder Wizard channel, is to teach people how to experience that. All right, so seek healthy relationships that mirror your internal values. We already talked about that. Make your happiness first priority. We already talked about that. And we also said, realize that nothing outside of you can fulfill you. Nothing outside of you can fulfill you. Why? Because you are everything. This is the message of all mysticism and all true religion. You know, the kingdom of God is within you, that you are God. And any religion that tells you otherwise is narcissistically devaluing you. And here's the other challenging part about this three-dimensional world. It's easier to live in the ego because this third-dimensional vibration is actually, you know, the quantum, you know, your brain collapses a reality that is based on narcissistic devaluation, which is ego. Here's the strange thing. People who are focused on their ego are narcissistically devalued. People who are self-fulfilled don't have anything to prove, and they're not focused on their ego. So this can be challenging because you think you're going after what you want. What you're really doing is going after your ego. But if you truly go after what you want, you will be going after your soul, and your soul doesn't need to have an ego because your soul is God. You know, this is why the biblical Jehovah is not God, because he demands that you obey him. And if you don't obey him, he punishes you eternally. That's what humans do. That's what narcissists do. The real source, which is you, if you're able to connect to the true source of this universe, you will find that you will see yourself, and that this being, if you want to call it God, has no need to impose anything on you. You know, you'll go and experience the true God, and you'll say to that God, what do you want me to do? And that God will say, I don't know, what do you want to do? Why don't you should do what you want. If you do what you want, you'll make me happy. So there's no commandments. You know, that's why my book is the one commandment. The one commandment is you have to follow your deepest soul desire. And if you don't, you will end up creating a reality where you are punished, because you will punish yourself for that. So anyway, we can go on and on. If you want to learn more about that, you can go get that. So if you want to learn more about the stuff that I do to help you, you can go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe. Subscribing for free, by the way, won't get you anything. There are other subscriptions that give you stuff. You'll get something if you subscribe there. And you can also find advanced practices and teachings at the shop at thunderwizard.com. The other thing I'd like for you to remember is that on my Thunder Wizard channel, every Wednesday and Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, you can see it there in the bottom right-hand corner of the picture, is the live guided interdimensional meditation to bring the 5D solar flash event. So that's free, doesn't matter who you are, show up, and I guide you through this meditation to help you to connect to higher dimensions, to higher dimensional beings, to find out who you truly are. And so again, every Wednesday and every Saturday, 8:30 p.m. If you're not able to make it live, don't worry, because they're archived. You go to the live section at Thunder Wizard YouTube channel, the Thunder Wizard YouTube channel. In the live section, you will see the live interdimensional meditations. And I should probably start titling them so you can know what the point of those are. But anyway, you can you don't have to be there live. You can do the recorded versions. So that's the most important, powerful thing that I'm offering you. Again, it's free for everybody. I would love to see, you know, right now we have between 20 and 30 people who show up to those the live ones. But I'd love to see hundreds and thousands of people doing these live meditations. We would absolutely change the world. So you're invited to come and be a part of that. Again, Thunder Wizard YouTube channel every Wednesday and Saturday at 8:30 p.m. All right, so that's it, my friends. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for showing up. Please remember that you are the most important being that has ever existed. You have value simply because you exist, and for no other reason. And know that the entire universe was created solely for your pleasure. And when you live your life focused on your first priority is your happiness, fulfilling your soul's desire, every conscious being in the universe evolves when you do that. Even if you have people in your life that get mad at you because you're not feeding their narcissism, you are still being an example of how to truly be happy. And so they're actually being fulfilled and evolved from that. The gods themselves, when you go after your deepest desire, the most powerful gods get on their knees and worship you. because when you do that, they expand in knowledge as well. So that's it for me, my friends. I wish you all the best. I love you. Please take very good care of yourselves until I see you next time.